A big hello and a warm welcome to all of you amazing and beautiful people out there. Welcome to my channel, the Twin Flame Union. In this session, we are going to be talking about the Western marriages and Indian marriages and the merge of it in the current situations. The Indian marriage concept is very important in this session because most of the people who are committed on the ascension journey, on the twin flame ascension journey, they are very much impressed by the Vedic concepts or they are very much impressed by the Indian mythology. It's sometimes it happens because of past life references also, and sometimes it happens because when you are studying the metaphysics concepts or when you are in the twin flame ascension journey, then you automatically realize that certain things make sense to you. It's not a thing that you have some kind of obsession for Indian things or Indian things are better and Western things are not better. That's not what I'm saying. In some cases, I have personally felt that Western families, how they do the upbringing of the child, it makes a child very independent and has a lot of freedom. The child gets a lot of freedom. They are able to explore life better. And at a very young age, they are given this thought pattern that you need to be on your own. You cannot live with your parents. You cannot depend on your parents. So even the parents are not as attached as the Indian parents are, who are going to stick with the child till a very long time, and even after marriage they have a lot of interference in their lives. At the same time, you see that this is a very close knit family situation. In India or Indian people, when they get married to someone, they cannot divorce that person very easily. They cannot say, oh, now I'm getting bored and I want to quit the marriage. Even after having 2 to 3 children, in the Western world, divorce is easier, much easier, and the alimony setup is also better than Indian system. So there are some good points in the Indian system and there are some good points in the Western world. When I say the Western world, I'm talking about any part of the world which is not Indian. Okay, I just want to simplify it because just for our understanding. To be honest, I don't feel that America is any different from India or Australia is any different from India. Why? Because these were the places that were basically ruled and there was a lot of slavery that they went through. And then in America also, I have seen that the original people, the aboriginals people, they were also called Red Indians. And that was because there was a reason behind it. So they also were Indians, they also prayed the nature and they worshipped God as a one concept, and they used to meditate and they used to live in alignment with everything that's under the 5 elements. They were not against nature, they were not destructing nature. Okay, so when the British colonized America at that point in time, they destroyed their natural lifestyle and they colonized them. So they were called Red Indians because of their skin color. Because when a very fair complexioned person lives in the sun, and living in the sun is a good thing, it's really good for your body. Living in nature is a very good thing. So they had sustainable homes, they had herbal knowledge, they had medicinal knowledge, they used to eat really good food. Everything was great about them, to be honest. So when the Americans got colonized, the British said that they cannot live like this. Okay. And coming to the Red Indian concept, they basically, the color of the skin in the sun used to turn red. Okay. And that is very natural. Or when you're living in nature, like I remember when I was in Pokhara, I used to be in the sun a lot of times. And my complexion, which is usually fair, it turned into golden brown. It was not even brown, it was golden brown. And I used to do a lot of sun gazing. Every morning I would sun gaze for at least an hour. And my routine was to wake up in the morning automatically at 4 or 3:45. I would wake up without any alarms, and then for 2 hours I would do my meditation work. It's not like it is some kind of a work, but it would automatically happen. Then at before sunrise, because in Pokhara sometimes it rains a lot. It's a monsoon place, it's a tropical weather place. The Vipassana center used to be nearby, and I used to go and spend an hour over there and sit still for an hour without any movement. On the way back, I would come and do sun gazing, or sometimes before also. If the days the sun used to rise early, the days it would not, then same thing. Then when I used to go to the lake again, I used to do a lot of sun gazing. So I was practically spending a lot of time either in the water or in the sun. So my complexion changed a lot. And that's the time I realized that, okay, my complexion can be this way also. Like I became really dark and it was looking nice. It wasn't looking bad with the kind of clothes I used to wear or with the hairstyle I used to have. So it was a new thing for me and it was interesting for me. So I was thinking the same thing, that when a very fair person, and I'm not the typical fair that foreigners are or in other countries, they are like really fair, and we in India, even when we are fair complexion, we would probably be not like white. We would be a one tone lighter than the wheatish, or two tones lighter than the wheatish complexion. So when we are out in the sun a lot, we would probably turn golden, slightly golden color. When they would go out in the sun, they would become reddish. That's why they started calling them Red Indians. And this term Red Indians were not given by the Red Indians. These terms were given to them by the British people. In fact, Indian is also an English word. We never used to call ourselves Indians. We used to call ourselves Bharatiya, because this was Bharatvansh and the country's name is Bharat. So when these people came to India, they named it India. Okay, and the Americans were called Red Indians. So they had a typical word for people like us, who would live with nature, who would study the Vedic concepts, or who were very scientific. They would call us Indians. So the Americans were called Red Indians and we were called Indians. And they had different names for different types of people. So, like now, so many years have passed by. In a way, we are still modern slaves. But I still feel that, as we grow, spirituality does not mean that we negate everything. Spirituality basically means that we take the positives from all places. In fact, instead of saying Indian, I would like to say Eastern, because in East also, there is some kind of a difference. Like if you go to Nepal, if you go to a country like Nepal, the concept of family, marriage, children is very different. Even though I have noticed that in Nepal, a huge level of freedom is given to women, and they are really taken care by the men. Men are very, very nice to women. It's more of a matriarchal society. According to me, it's not like everything is perfect everywhere. Like if we say that, yes, this country is absolutely perfect, that never happens. Even the most perfect place cannot be completely perfect. So I'm just picking up onto the majority of what I see. So there is a difference between the Western and the Eastern marriages, where one side of the world has more like, okay, I'm going to fall in love, I'm going to look for that person, and then I'm going to go into a relationship mode. I'm going to date that person, I'm going to get intimate with that person, I'm going to spend time with that person, and then decide if it works or not. And over here, it's more like, no, this is a person for me. Sometimes they don't even know the person. The families, they come with the proposals. Like very recently, I was a part of this situation where a proposal was sent for one of my aunt, and the guy, the potential partner or potential person who came to see her. So the meeting happened between all of us, like we were all there, and it was really interesting how the whole thing was going on. Then finally the guy and the girl, all the elders in the house, they said, okay, why don't you go and spend some time alone and just talk about life and things and whatever. So during those 15-20 minutes, they both had a personal interaction. They were sitting in another room, and I think the mischievous people, including me, we were crossing that room like 5-6 times. I crossed the same room. I was making faces, I was trying to make it funny, and my sister was there, my aunt. So everyone was literally involved in that meeting. It was not a date, but still it was considered as a date. Now here the two people are completely prepared that we are going to see someone who's going to get married to me if I like that person. So this is not also forced on them. It's not like yes. But I still feel that somewhere, I felt that the women don't get so many options as much as the men get. So the men are going to meet so many women. and then they go like, okay, I want to be with this one, I want to be with that one. Women usually will not get to reject so much. Although, yes, I did see in my other aunt's cases that they did reject quite a few people who they felt that it was completely below their standards or below what they want. So I'm talking about now, see, there's a comparison in Indian arranged marriages and Nepali arranged marriages. In Nepal, women have more freedom, they have more respect, they are loved, they are taken care of, they are very free, you know. There are two festivals, especially the festival of Tej, and I have shared vlogs about it. You can see on my channel, the Sunamoon vlogs, what women are doing. They are dancing on the streets. So it's a women's festival. For 10 days, women, they collect in different places, they have parties, they buy a lot of clothes, and all the arrangement like the music, the food, the shopping, everything is done by men. And they don't interfere. It's not like the men are going to come in between and say, hey, where are you? They will stand at a distance. And why they do that? It's a very sweet way actually to do it, because they want to be protective. You know, just in case the women are singing and dancing and some rowdy guy comes in between. So they want to be like careful about it. Or if they need anything, if the music needs to be better, you know, somebody has to be the DJ over there. If they need food, preparations, like all the preparations, and they spend a huge amount of money. At that point in time, the women, they buy new jewelry, they buy new dresses, whether it's a little girl or whether it's an old lady or whether it's a married woman, it doesn't matter. The men's duty, the men's job is to be like a good caretaker for the women. In Nepal, I noticed one more thing. If you ever visit Nepal, you'll see that all businesses, the face of the business is always a woman. You go to shops, you go to malls, you go to any big or small business, it's run by a woman. So you're going to think that the woman is the, you know, business person. But actually all the physical job, all the labor job, all the hard things, all the buying, all the meetings, it's all done by men. So they actually do business in a very unique way. I found it very unique. I found it very harmonious and very, very fascinating also, you know, because like once I was, you know, hanging out with my cousins and my aunts and uncles, and we just happened to go to a shop, and it's basically a car and a vehicle shop. Okay. So all hardware and those type of products were there. Obviously, you don't expect to see women in a place like that. But when I went there, we basically wanted to get one of our cars cleaned before taking it out. Again, it was a marriage function, so we needed it for some purpose. So they had gone to this shop to get the cleaning work done, you know, like the servicing was going on for the car. And this car had to be decorated for the groom. So all of that was happening. So when I went to the store, now I was noticing these things, others obviously don't, because for them it's very normal. So I saw that there were two ladies who were in the shop. And they were just sitting and they were checking the accounts and they were chit-chatting with us, and literally everyone knows everyone. So we were just chilling, and they were like, do you want to have tea, coffee, what, and what's up? So how's life in Delhi and this and that? I was like, it's all good. And then when the difficult part came, like when they had to get the work done, when the laborers had to come, I don't know from where the husbands came in, and they were like, okay, so you need to, this to be done, that to be done, okay, we'll get it done. And then the labor were called, or whatever hard labor they were doing it. So it was fascinating for me. So this type of a bond is very interesting. So when I ask people, so did you fall in love, or how did you get married and this and that, they said that most of the people told me that, you know, yeah, it was arranged, but we did also fall in love. So our parents introduced us, and then we met few times, and then we said, okay, finally, yes. But we were meeting each other after we confirmed each other. Now in India, it's like slightly different. Here, I feel that the women are more like, they are the ones who have to conform more. It's different in different places. Now in other places in Asia also things are different. In some countries it's like women have more rights. In some countries it's a patriarchal society. Now the Western way, somewhere I also like that, you know, like I said, that the parents, they give children a lot of freedom. And I have seen that for them, going to the children's affairs is very important. Like if there is a sports day in the school, then you'll see all the parents have turned up over there. It's a good, like it's a big important event for them. or if it's some kind of a event where the children are performing on the stage, then you'll see the hall is filled with all parents. So what is changing in this world right now? What is changing is that people are trying to understand what is the actual way of loving another person, and if we are going to spend our whole life with someone, how should it be? In the twin flame ascension journey, it's very much important to understand what is your programming like, what is your culture, what do you feel about it, because everybody is different. Now, once I was doing a reading for a girl, and now she lives in America, and she lives in one of the posh places in America. It's a very posh place, and she is in a twin flame ascension journey. But for her, and I felt that she had a masculine energy, she was the runner, and she was very pampered by her parents, extremely pampered by her parents. She was still living in her parents' house. The problem is, when she fell in love with the twin, her twin, and she knew it was a spiritual connection, not a physical connection, the parents were completely against it. They were like, no, you're not going to do it. You're going to marry someone who we like. Okay? Now, in their culture, so imagine somebody is in America, in a very posh place, in a very posh city of America, but they don't have the right to choose their partner. So the parents chose their partner. In their culture, I don't know which culture it is, and I don't even want to use some personal details. So I'm just going to give you what I found fascinating and which can be helpful for the twin flame community. So the parents were like, in their culture, you don't have to really marry someone. Engagement is considered as marriage. So you get engaged to this guy, and this guy will live with us. So you don't have to leave the parents' house. Now, in the twin flame dynamic also, we have seen that the divine masculines, or the sacred masculine, why do they suffer? Because they have a lot of impact or a lot of hold from the adults around who have raised them. So they don't want to let go of them, basically. There is a lot of control, which comes like, we love you, so we are the well-wishers for you, and we are taking the right decision for you. The decision-making power to the DMs is not given. So basically, in that case also, now she has a child with this man, and now she does not want to be with him. So now she's struggling, and now she's doing inner work. So she's telling me, the man I was in love with, I dated him, but I did not commit to him. I did not took the stand for him, and now he doesn't want to talk to me. And now I have a child. I love my child, undoubtedly I love my child, but I'm in this trap now. She said that after having the child, I have started hating him even more. Because it's like my parents could not let go of me, or they did not want me to live a free life, so they put me in this jail with a person that they liked. Initially, for a few months, it was nice, but once the baby came in, I am realizing that I'm actually really big time stuck up. Now, what do I do? So this is interesting. So sometimes I feel it's not the location that matters. It's the vibration that's your address, actually. Now then I was again meeting some more people. I was just hanging out with them. I just happened to meet a lot of people, and I don't know how that happens. Again, in this household, I noticed that the girl child has a lot of freedom, and the parents have a lot of freedom. Like, they live quite differently. And they come from a tribal village of India. Like, if you actually go back to their origin, then they were a tribe, and they used to live like that in childhood. Only when they grew up, the movement happened from the village to the city, and from a very small place to a big city. But they have that, feeling intact. So the women get a lot of freedom, lot of respect, lot of love. And I could see that, like, the girl child, and they don't want to have any more kids. They're very happy with the girl child. They're like, no, we don't care about having a son and this and that. So the girl child is like on the message on the phone with someone, and I was just pulling her leg, and I said, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Who are you messaging right now when we are all sitting here and chilling? So before she could answer, the father said that she's talking to her new boyfriend. And the girl was like, come on, I'm not into boys, I like girls. And I was like, what? She's just like she's a teenager probably, little thing. I was like, who told you this? Like, she said, no, I think girls are more cooler than guys. I was like, oh my God. So And she's talking about this in front of her family members. Obviously, my mother did not figure it out like what's happening, but I was finding it hilarious. I was having a laugh. So now this channeling this session basically is a combination of these interesting observations about patriarchy and matriarchy. And I always say that patriarchy and matriarchy is not even the deal. The deal is having a children-oriented society. Marriage has a very important impact. So for a twin flame, you need to figure out where do you come from, what is the impact of your programming. You could be born in a fancy city of the world, but you may not have the same freedom as somebody who was born in a tribal village. Maybe they are much more advanced than the people who are living in posh cities, I mean, this is just an example. It doesn't apply to everyone. And I'm saying this because the twin flame journey is very interesting from this perspective, that we cannot compare ourselves with the three-dimensional people ever. Because if you're going to compare your life with the 3D world, you're going to be in a lot of misery and a lot of suffering will come to you. You have to be very independent. You have to enjoy being a hermit. The hermitage will come to you as a natural part of you. If it doesn't come to you as a natural part of you, then you may not completely be a twin flame also. So for a twin flame, enjoying their freedom, enjoying their independent nature, enjoying their solitude is very important. So when you are in a marriage or you choose to marry someone, even if it's your twin or you marry a soulmate or whatever is your, by God's plan, whatever is your destiny, whatever you do, you need to be very, very careful about these things, that you're not getting married because of societal pressure. You're not getting married because somebody tells you that your age is a matter of concern for them. Or you're not getting married because somebody tells you that you need to have children, so now it's the time to get married. Or you're not getting married because all your girlfriends are getting married or all your cousins are getting married. Or marriage should not be happening for you because of a societal construct. It should happen when you want to get married, when you feel like, yes, I can be with a person. In the Twin Flame Ascension journey, mission work is the key thing. I know there are a lot of people, in fact, I don't disagree with some of them. As I always say, there is a thin line. And sometimes things also sound like a contradiction, but there is always a thin line. Like there is a thin line in love and lust, right? There's a thin line in bullying and being stern. There's a thin line in being aggressive and being disciplined. So how do we define that thin line? We need to use our own intuitive powers. We need to do our inner work basically to figure that out. That if you kiss your twin flame or if you kiss the man or the woman you love, is it out of lust or is it out of affection? Is it a sexual kiss or is it an asexual kiss? You need to figure that out, So from the outside perspective, I can only observe and I can give you the right information that seems right, in a particular situation. So don't force marriage on yourself. Don't force a relationship on yourself just because you're scared to be lonely. You should enjoy being alone and you should enjoy doing your mission work. And if you get a partner by God's grace who's giving you that type of freedom, he's not pressurizing you to reproduce or he's not telling you don't do this, don't do that. He's giving you that type of freedom and affection and support, then we should be happy about it. We should not get stuck if he's my twin flame or not my twin flame. Sometimes in many cases, it's not necessary you marry your twin flame. Your twin flame could be there in your life to help you in certain ways, to boost your ascension journey, to be a good friend of yours, to tell you that don't worry, go ahead. Or your twin flame could be separated with you, not because they wanted to get separated, but because the universe had some plans. Destiny was written like that for you. So don't get confused is what the whole idea is. You can fall in love and get married and somebody can arrange the marriage for you. Main thing is, it should not be a romantic situation. It should be more of a heartfelt spiritual connection. So if you feel you need to take time for it, take time for it. If you feel like we don't need to take any time for it, it's cool, then do it like that. So on this note, I'm going to close this channeling session. Thank you so much for being here with me. One love and peace out.